I'm holding a small son, I told myself, palm around Zuri's warm bottle. Then I met a smile colder than the cabin air, and I knew which one this room wanted to extinguish. "Sir," she said, crisp, sweet, practiced. "No open containers? During boarding, it's sealed," I answered, raising the cap. "Infant formula she hasn't eaten since security. We'd hate sticky messes up here." Her eyes flicked to my suit, to Maya's headscarf, to our first-class seats. "People bring all kinds of situations." "It's a baby," I said. "Not a situation." Maya touched my wrist. "Jordan, we're okay. We just need hot water. 2 minutes." "We'll be careful," I added, keeping my voice steady. Her name tag winked under the LED, Kendra. She leaned in to adjust the tray. Her elbow grazed my hand. The bottle pinwheeled, kissed my belt buckle, and burst a pale arc across my lap. "Oh," she sang, light as glass. "Accident." Heat climbed my neck. Laughter didn't come, but something like it flickered in a throat. Behind me, I felt every eye, real or imagined. Maya pulled wipes from the diaper bag. "Zuri needs to eat, please. Hot water?" "After takeoff," Kendra said. "Policy." "We're still at the gate." "We're nearly not." She motioned toward the aisle. "Seat belts." I breathed through my teeth. "We paid for this seat. We don't owe you permission to be parents." A soft voice drifted from the opposite aisle. "Here, dear." Older woman, navy cardigan, hands steady as prayer, offered a white handkerchief embroidered with tiny daisies. "Use this." "Thank you," I said, and it nearly broke me. How kindness can land like a life raft. Zuri squirmed, rooting against my chest, a small storm gathering under the hum of vents. I lifted the call button. It chimed once, clean and polite. Kendra looked at the light, then at me. "I'll be right back." She didn't move. I glanced forward, row 2A, Ethan Ward, my colleague. A man who had leaned across polished wood last week and grinned. "Brother, we did it." He saw me, saw the bottle, the lap, the handkerchief, and slid his gaze back to his champagne. "Ethan," I said. The name left my throat like a lifeline I already knew would sink. He lifted the glass. Nothing else. A younger attendant peeked. From the galley, nervous eyes, warm voice. "We can provide sealed hot water for infant formula," he murmured to the air, as if the policy itself might be listening. Kendra cut him with a look. "Jay," he vanished. Maya's whisper bent close. "She's getting hungry." "I know." My tongue tasted metallic like a penny stuck to the roof of my mouth. "I know." The PA cracked, and the captain's baritone threaded through the cabin. "Cabin crew, prepare for departure." Static clipped the rest. The volume wasn't loud, but it pressed on my chest, a clock tick I couldn't slow. "Kendra," I said, softer, measured, because I have learned this is how I'm allowed to speak in rooms like this. "Please bring hot water, now." "Sir," she repeated, a smile as thin as a blade. "After takeoff, policy." Quote the line. "Excuse me?" Quote the line that says a baby can't eat on the ground. She blinked. "You're escalating. I'm feeding my child." Zuri let out a cry. Small, then wider, then the kind that puddles in the carpet of your ribs and won't stop. Heads turned. Phones tilted. Maya kissed Zuri's forehead. "Shh, baby. Just a minute." Kendra's smirk sharpened. "If the bottle—" "Spilled once." "It didn't spill," I said. "You knocked it." "Sir, I adjusted your tray." "You elbowed my hand." She shrugged. "Things move. That's called gravity." My voice stayed even. "This is called dignity." Jay reappeared, palms open. "I can bring a sealed cup, sir." "We have thermoses." "Jay," Kendra snapped. He flinched, retreating an inch he could not afford. The handkerchief woman leaned in again. "Young man," she whispered to me, "hold your line. Kindness is a policy, no matter what they print." I nodded. My pulse slowed just enough for the words to find me. "Kendra," I said, "bring the hot water. Or bring your supervisor." After takeoff, we have a 5-month-old who hasn't eaten. The safest thing on this airplane is feeding her now. "Sir, stop being disruptive. I'm not raising my voice. You're creating a scene. No, I said. You are. Ethan turned half an inch, then retreated into the glow of his screen like a man backing away from a burning building he helped wire. I pressed the call button again. The tiny chime sounded like the start of a trial. Maya's fingers shook as she opened a fresh formula packet. She'll scream through takeoff. She won't scream, I said to convince myself. We won't let her. Kendra leaned down. Close enough for me to smell wintergreen. We've had issues. People bring messes up here. People, I repeated, holding her stare. Which people? Her smile didn't move. You wouldn't understand the operational complexities. I run a company, I said. I understand complexities. I don't understand cruelty. A cough, a camera click. The air went thinner, not because of altitude, but because of intent. I felt the line, the invisible one I've stepped on my entire life. Stretching under my feet, Kendra reached for the bottle on the armrest, as if to tidy the world back into her comfort. I closed my hand over it first. Don't. Sir. Do. Job. Her jaw twitched. Sit tight. I won't sit tight while my baby cries. Then perhaps, say it, I said. Say what you're about to say. She didn't. She gave me the smile that says you know, and that's enough. I looked past her, past Ethan, to the faint reflection of me in the window. A man with milk on his lap and a daughter on his chest and a voice that will not break even when it trembles. Hot water, I said again, quieter, steadier, as if speaking to the part of the plane that still believed in humanity. Now, the PA chimed. The engines growled under my shoes. Zuri's cry rose. The handkerchief in my fist felt like a flag I hadn't meant to carry into battle. But here I was. I paid for a seat, I said, lifting my head. Not for your permission to be a father. Kendra's smile thinned to thread. After takeoff, I pressed the button one more time, eyes never leaving hers. We feed our child, I told her, every word a step I refused to take back. Period. I knew the spill wasn't the end, it was just the opening act. Hot water, I repeated, calmer than I felt. We need to make her bottle. Kendra tilted her head, voice sharpened with sugar. Sir, that's a special request. We don't accommodate those before takeoff. Special? I said, my lap still damp. It's an infant, she's hungry. Maya slipped a pacifier into Zuri's mouth, whispering, Shh, baby, just a little longer. But the pacifier wasn't. Enough. I felt her tiny fists clench against my chest. From the galley, a hesitant voice broke in. Jay, the young attendant. Actually, hot water for formula is allowed. It's Jay. Kendra cut him in half with a single word. Her eyes didn't even flick toward him. Step back. I caught his glance, fleeting but apologetic, before he disappeared again. Humiliation boiled inside me. My colleague Ethan finally turned around, locking eyes with me for a breath. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd step in, then nothing. He looked away, swirled his champagne, and toasted the ceiling. Supervisor, I said firmly. Now. Kendra smiled like a blade. After takeoff. Policy. The word policy snapped against my ribs like a whip. I wanted to ask her what section, what clause, what handbook. Instead, I swallowed and gripped the fresh bottle Maya had just prepared. Don't, Maya warned. Too late. Kendra bent forward as if adjusting the tray table. Her hand nudged just enough. The bottle slid. I saw it falling before it happened. Slow motion. Cruel. Milk hit the carpet in a white splash that spread like a wound between us. This time it wasn't an accident. Everyone knew it. Gasps echoed. Around me, phones lifted, tiny red record lights glowing. Why would you? Maya's voice broke. She clutched Zuri tighter, rocking desperately. I stood, my body trembling, not from fear, but from the restraint it took not to roar. You will help us feed our baby, I said. Each word cut through the hum of the cabin. Kendra's smirk widened. You people always want exceptions. The words hung in the air, thick, undeniable. My stomach dropped. Say that again. She didn't. She just turned her back as though nothing had been spoken. as though milk wasn't soaking the aisle, as though my daughter's cries weren't splitting the silence. But the passengers heard. They all heard. Cameras rose higher. Rosa's hand gripped my arm, steadying me. Maya's tears slid silently onto Zuri's hair. And me. My voice was steady, low, unshaken. You didn't humiliate us. You just exposed yourself. The cabin went silent, the kind of silence that means something irreversible has begun. And in that silence I knew, this wasn't just about a bottle anymore. It was about dignity. It was about every unspoken line people like her thought they could cross, and I wasn't going to let it pass. Zuri's cry sliced through the cabin like glass against metal. It wasn't just a sound. It was a verdict. A tiny voice demanding what grown men and women were too afraid to say. Maya rocked her, whispering, "Shh, baby. Please, just a little. Longer." But I knew. No pacifier, no rocking, no lullaby was going to silence hunger. I pressed the call button again. The chime felt louder this time, heavier, like a gavel striking wood. Kendra appeared, her smile stiff, her voice drenched in false patience. "Sir, I told you after takeoff." Before I could answer, another voice rose from 2 rows back, calm, deliberate. "Excuse me, I'm a pediatric nurse." A woman leaned forward, hands folded, tone measured like she'd done this her whole life. "The baby needs sterile or boiled water. She can't wait." Relief flickered in me. "Thank you?" Kendra's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, we can't." "You can," the nurse interrupted, steady. "It's medically necessary." Her name, I'd later learn, was Amal Khan. But in that moment, she was more than a passenger. She was proof I wasn't insane. I looked back at Kendra. "She's right. Your own manual allows it. Section 4, Infant Feeding Provisions. Read it?" Kendra blinked, caught off guard, then narrowed her eyes. "Sir, raising your voice?" "I'm not raising my voice," I said, calm but clipped. "I'm quoting your own rules." A shuffle of whispers rippled through the cabin, then another sound. Click, click. Call buttons lit up one after another like stars breaking through night. A man muttered from across the aisle, "Just help the baby already." Another voice, sharper. "This is ridiculous." The pressure shifted. It wasn't just me anymore. The air in that cabin turned heavy with judgment, with silent jurors filling the seats. I caught Jay's eyes from the galley. He slipped forward, palms close to his sides, whispering like someone sneaking a secret across enemy lines. "I can bring sealed bottles. Maybe even a kettle." "Do it," I said, barely moving my lips. He nodded, disappeared again. Kendra saw him go. "Jay," she hissed, loud enough to sting the air. "Don't move until I tell you." But Jay didn't stop. Zuri wailed harder, her tiny fists beating against Maya's chest. Maya's tears slipped down as she rocked, whispering prayers under her breath. Something inside me broke, not into anger, into clarity. "This isn't disruption," I said, locking my eyes on Kendra. "This is survival." Her smile sharpened. "Sir, passengers who disrupt procedures can be removed from flights." "Removed?" My voice stayed low, steady. "For asking you to let my baby eat?" Silence. Then Amal again, her tone slicing through the quiet. "If you remove anyone, you remove me too. Because this is medical." The murmurs grew louder. Rosa, the older woman beside us, lifted her chin, her hand still steady on my arm. "He's not disrupting, he's protecting his child. That's called being a father." I felt my breath steady. Their words shored me up. Kendra's eyes darted around the cabin now, not just at me. She could feel it, the room slipping from her control. The cabin wasn't a plane anymore. It was a courtroom. Armrests became jurors' desks. The aisle, a witness stand. Zuri's cry, the prosecutor, no one could silence. I leaned forward, slow and deliberate. "You can threaten me all you want, but understand this." I paused, letting the hush deepen. "You're not fighting me. You're fighting a 5-month-old's. Hunger. And that's a battle you will lose. The words landed. I knew it. I saw passengers lean forward, phone still raised, eyes locked on her. Kendra swallowed hard. For the first time, her mask slipped. Just a cracked dot. And in that crack, I saw it, fear, dot. But the decision wasn't hers anymore. The cabin had already chosen its side, dot. The jury was awake. And the verdict was coming, dot. The engines roared beneath my feet. A low thunder rolling through the cabin. We were seconds from leaving the ground when Jay slipped a small cup of hot water into my hand, his eyes darting like a man risking his career. Check it, I whispered. Amal leaned over, steady, calm, testing a drop on her wrist. Perfect temperature. Feed her now. I poured the formula, hands trembling. Zuri reached, her cry cracking like lightning across leather and glass. Maya's shoulders sagged with relief, and then Kendra lunged. "Clear the aisle," she snapped, reaching across me with exaggerated force. Her elbow clipped my hand. The bottle shook. The cap popped and warm milk spilled down the seat. Zuri's wail rose higher, raw and piercing, louder than the engine's dot. Something broke in me then. Not rage, not despair, something cleaner, sharper. I stood, voice low but cutting, through every breath in the cabin. "You didn't deny my baby milk." I paused, watching her freeze. "You just grounded your own plane." Gasps rippled. A man dropped his phone in shock. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Kendra's face, drained of color. "Sir, sit down." "No," Amal said firmly, rising halfway out of her seat. "This is a medical need. You will stop this aircraft now." Jay nodded quickly, signaling toward the front. "Purser." His voice cracked, desperate but brave. "We need intervention." The purser, Linda, stepped forward, her jaw tight, eyes already scanning the mess, the crying child, the witnesses. "Captain," she spoke into her intercom, "we have a medical concern, infant feeding." The cabin hushed as the engines slowed, a long sigh of machinery fighting momentum. Then the captain's voice, solemn, final. A boarding taxi, returning to gate. The wheels jolted. The runway lights swayed past the windows, and the weight of justice pressed down heavier than the plane itself. Kendra stammered, "This is unnecessary. No." I interrupted, my words cutting like steel. "You did this, not us, not her cries, you." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was holy, a sanctified pause where truth finally claimed the room. Every passenger knew it. Phones tilted higher, recording, capturing the moment the power shifted. I sat back down, bottle still in my hand, Zuri still crying against my chest. My lap was wet, my dignity bruised, but for the first time that night I felt something different. Control. The rumble of wheels carried us back toward the gate, toward the reckoning none of us could stop. And in that silence I swore I heard it. The sound of history breathing inside a cabin full of witnesses. The engines went silent, but the cabin still hummed with tension. The doors opened and a woman stepped in. Pressed uniform, tablet in hand, face unreadable. "Supervisor Monica Reeves," she said, her tone flat, almost rehearsed. "I need to understand what happened here." Kendra was faster than me. The passenger became aggressive," she said, pointing at me with a smile that didn't match her eyes. "He disrupted service, raised his voice, scared my crew. Aggressive." The word burned like acid in my throat. Aggressive when all I had done was ask for my child to eat. Aggressive because my voice carried the weight of a skin color she had already judged. I swallowed, fists tight on my knees. Maya whispered, "Jordan, breathe." Zuri whimpered softly against her shoulder, exhausted. Monica's eyes flicked from me to the stained carpet where milk still darkened the fibers. She didn't speak, just tapped her tablet. "I'll need statements." Kendra folded her arms, smug as if her story had already taken root. Then Jay stepped forward. His hands shook, but his voice carried. "That's not true. He wasn't aggressive. He was calm. He just asked over and over. She kept saying no." Kendra snapped, "Jay," but he didn't stop. I told her we could provide hot water. It's in policy. She told me not to move. He never threatened anyone. The cabin murmured like a jury, leaning closer. Monica nodded slowly. Noted? She turned. Medical confirmation? Amal rose, her badge clipped to her bag, her voice steady. I'm a pediatric nurse. The baby needed formula urgently. Delaying it was harmful. He was protective, not disruptive. Stylus froze mid-note. She looked at Ethan next. Sir, you were in the front row. Did you witness anything? Ethan didn't look up from his tablet. I didn't see clearly. His voice was thin, evasive. I was working. My chest tightened. Betrayal tastes metallic, like blood on your tongue. He had seen everything. He had chosen silence. Before I could speak, Rosa leaned forward. Her voice trembled, but her words were sharp. He's lying. All eyes turned. I saw him look, back when it happened. He knew. She pointed her chin at me, her hand gripping her handkerchief. And I saw every word. That man never raised his voice, never cursed. He only asked for his baby to be fed. Kendra's face stiffened, her mask cracking at the edges. Monica finally turned to me. Mr. Cole, your statement? I drew in a long breath. My lap still damp, my pride bruised, but my voice was steady. From the moment we boarded, she called it a mess. She knocked the bottle over herself. Twice. She called us you people. Every refusal was deliberate. Gasps, a ripple of recognition ran through the passengers. Phones shifted higher. Someone whispered, I got that on video. Monica's head lifted. Do any passengers have recordings? Hands rose. Not one, not two, half a dozen. Screens glowed like torches in a dark room, evidence shining in the faces of strangers who had finally chosen a side. Kendra's lips parted. Words, failing her, the veneer she had polished so carefully shattered under the weight of truth she could no longer bury. And in that moment, I felt it. The power shift. From me being the accused, the aggressive man in her story, to her standing alone, exposed, before the crowd. The cabin wasn't quiet anymore. It was waiting for judgment. And for the first time that night, I wasn't afraid of what came next. It only takes one video to break a lie. Supervisor, a man's voice called from row 3. I think you need to see this. I turned. He was holding up his phone, screen glowing. Monica took it, pressed play, and the sound filled the cabin, like a gunshot in a church. Kendra's voice, clear, mocking, recorded minutes before boarding. First class used to be for real business travelers. She laughed to another attendant. Now it's just quota optics. They'll seat anyone up here. The words hit harder than any elbow, harder than the milk spill. My stomach dropped, but my fury rose faster. Quota optics. That's what she thought of me. Of Maya. Of Zuri. Of everything I had fought for. Not achievement, not merit. A seat filled to check a box. I looked at Monica. Her neutral mask slipped. Her jaw tightened, her eyes sharpened. The stylus in her hand pausing mid-air. Kendra stammered. That was, taken out of context. I was joking. No one laughed, the man in 3A said. His voice was steady, almost cold. Ethan shifted in his seat. I caught it. The twitch of guilt. The flinch of a man who had seen the mask crack and still chosen silence. Jay's eyes glassed over. He looked down, ashamed, as if carrying the weight of every order he'd been too afraid to resist. Amal leaned closer to me, whispering, It's on record now. She can't bury it. Rosa slid her palm over mine. Fragile, warm, trembling but firm. Hold the line, she whispered. You've already won. The silence around us wasn't neutral anymore. It was heavy, tilted, thick with judgment. Every passenger was no longer just a witness. They were jurors, and the verdict was tilting. Kendra's face twisted. I didn't mean it that way. You people. She stopped. Too late. The words had already poisoned the air again. Monica raised her hand. Enough. Her voice wasn't flat anymore. It carried weight, finality. My pulse slowed, steady, anchored by Rosa's hand and Zuri's quiet breaths against Maya's chest. I turned my face toward the dark porthole. My reflection stared back at me, eyes tired, jaw tight, suit stained with milk, but unbroken, furious, and unbroken. I whispered to my reflection, low enough that only I could hear it. They wanted me. Small. Tonight I'll be anything but. Behind me, the cabin stayed hushed, waiting, watching, knowing justice had just entered the aisle and it wasn't leaving empty-handed. "Let's be clear," Monica said, stepping into the aisle, her tablet pressed to her chest. "Airline policy requires infant feeding support when requested. Anti-discrimination codes apply at all times. Crew conduct must remain professional." The cabin stilled. Every syllable hit like a gavel dot. She looked at me, then at Maya, cradling Zuri, then back. "Kendra, this flight cannot continue without resolution. You have 3 options. Rebook with compensation, continue with a replacement crew, or disembark to file a formal statement." The choices hung in the air like 3 doors in a burning building. Kendra's voice cracked as she tried to wedge herself through the smoke. It wasn't how it sounded. There was context. I was under stress, joking with a colleague. "Context?" I cut in, my tone sharpened to a scalpel. "Context is when a bottle spills by accident, not when it's elbowed twice. Context is when a father raises his voice in anger, not when he whispers policy through clenched teeth. Context is not a baby crying because an adult chose cruelty over compassion." The air thickened. Kendra's face flushed. She looked smaller now, as if even her own words had begun to betray her. Ethan finally spoke. His voice wavered. "Jordan, I'm sorry, I should have—" Rosa leaned forward before I could answer. Her voice trembled, but her words were sharp as broken glass. "Who exactly are you apologizing to? To him for abandoning him? To the baby for sipping champagne while she starved? Or to yourself because silence felt safer than truth?" Ethan's mouth closed. His apology evaporated. I turned back to Monica, my voice low but unshakable. "We don't want hush money. We don't want a private whisper of regret. If this moves forward, it moves with accountability. Public, visible, because dignity isn't negotiable." Amal stood, calm and deliberate, and handed Maya the warmed bottle Jay had finally managed to prepare. Maya's hands trembled as she guided it into Zuri's mouth. For the first time that night, my daughter drank. The sound was soft, small gulps, steady, grateful, and yet it filled the cabin louder than the engines ever had. The passengers exhaled together, as if they too had been holding their breath for hours. I brushed my daughter's hair back with shaking fingers, watching her cheeks move with each swallow. My heart cracked wide open. Not from anger this time, but from the weight of relief. I lifted my eyes to Kendra. "You asked for context? Here it is. Context is a baby finally feeding after hours of hunger. Context is a plane full of witnesses who saw which side of humanity you chose tonight. Context is a father who will not let silence rewrite this story." Monica's stylus tapped. "Decision noted, proceeding with crew change." The cabin erupted. Not with cheers, but with a deeper sound. Agreement, approval, a verdict delivered in silence, punctuated only by Zuri's soft, perfect drinking. And in that moment I realized dignity had reclaimed the room, but justice was still waiting just outside the gate. The aisle became a stage. Every eye followed her as 2 crew members walked Kendra forward. Her steps were stiff, her face pale. She tried to keep her chin up, but the silence around her was louder than any shout. I didn't gloat, I didn't smirk. I just held my daughter, listening to the faint rhythm of her breath against my chest. That was the only victory I needed. The captain's voice came through the speakers, steady but heavy. "Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of this airline, I extend a sincere apology. Tonight's events do not reflect our values, and corrective measures are being taken immediately." Corrective measures. His words were corporate, but the weight in them was real. For the first time, the cabin believed it. Monica leaned toward me. "Mr. Cole, the question remains. Do you wish to press charges, or do you want to resolve this?" "Another way?" I looked at Maya. She was rocking Zuri, finally sleeping, her tiny mouth slack with peace. Maya's eyes were red but steady. She left the answer to me. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I don't want charges. I don't want her name buried in some police file where nothing changes. I want something bigger." Monica raised her brows. "Bigger? I want training, real training. Mandatory, every crew member. I want the apology public, not whispered in a back office where no one hears it. Justice isn't a seat upgrade. It's making sure no other father has to beg for his baby to eat." The words left my mouth like stone dropped in water. Ripples spread through the cabin. Passengers nodded. Some whispered yes. Some closed their eyes as if they'd just witnessed something sacred. Monica typed, the tap of her stylus, the sound of an agreement being born. "Your terms will be reviewed but noted." Behind me, Ethan finally spoke. His voice was thin. "Jordan, can we talk later?" I didn't look at him. "Later is where silence lives," I said. "You chose silence when it mattered." The sentence cut, clean and final. I heard someone draw in a sharp breath, like the air itself recognized the weight of those words. The captain returned to the intercom. "We will be delayed while a replacement crew arrives. Please remain seated. Thank you for your patience." For once, I didn't care about the delay. I didn't care about missed meetings or schedules. The heaviness that had pressed down since boarding began to lift. I looked down at Zuri, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. She was safe. She was fed. She was asleep. And for the first time that night, the plane felt lighter, even grounded, even waiting, even with hours lost. Lighter because truth had been spoken aloud, I whispered into my daughter's hair. We held the line. The cabin stayed quiet, reverent, as if every soul on board knew something rare had just happened. But I also knew this wasn't the end. The real flight hadn't even begun yet. We touched down hours late, but time didn't matter anymore. The plane rolled to a stop, and as the doors opened, I felt the weight of the night shift from my shoulders into the cool air of the terminal. Phones buzzed before our feet even hit. The ground. Screens lit up with headlines with a statement already posted by the airline. Investigation launched. Crew member suspended. Training changes to follow. Justice wasn't complete, but it was breathing. As we walked toward baggage claim, my inbox lit up like a storm. Some messages dripped with venom. Words that said I was overreacting, that I played a card I should never touch. But most were gratitude. Fathers I'd never met. Mothers who had carried babies through airports and prayed for compassion. Strangers saying, "Thank you for not staying silent." I tightened my grip on Maya's hand, on Zuri's tiny weight against my chest. "Jordan," Amal said, catching me before the exit. She pulled me into a hug, strong and steady like she had been all night. "You didn't just protect your child. You protected every child who comes after." "Thank you," I whispered. And for once, words didn't feel enough. Then Rosa stepped forward. The handkerchief woman. The one whose courage had steadied me when mine cracked. She pressed the fabric back into my palm. Milk stains faintly marked the edge. "For the next spill life throws at you," she said, her voice trembling, but fierce. I closed my fist around it, my throat tightening. "I won't forget." As we reached the sliding doors, my phone buzzed again. A message from Ethan, paragraphs of apology, explanations about pressure, about not knowing how to act, promises he would do better. I read every word. Then I let it sit. No reply. Some silence needs to echo. Outside, the night air hit my face, cool, raw, honest. I pressed Zuri closer, her heartbeat steady against mine. That heartbeat had silenced lies. That heartbeat had turned a cabin into a courtroom. That heartbeat had grounded a plane, and as I stepped into the night, I carried one truth with me. They tried to make us small, but my daughter's cry made the whole world listen. I stood in front of my company, Not as a CEO with numbers to announce, but as a father with a scar that hadn't healed. "I want to talk about dignity," I said, my voice carrying across the glass walls and polished floors. Not as a brand posture, not as a marketing word, but as a survival skill. The difference between being seen and being erased. The room was silent. Dozens of faces waited. Some curious, some weary, all listening. I told them everything, the boarding, the smirk, the word policy twisted into a weapon, the bottle spilling across my lap like a stain meant to mark me small, the cries of my daughter silenced by indifference. I paused, swallowing the memory that still burned. They wanted me to shrink. Instead, I chose to stand, because silence doesn't protect you. It only protects the lie. Hands shifted in laps. Eyes dropped, then rose again, braver this time. One by one, people began to speak. A woman in accounting raised her hand. "I was followed in a store last month. I didn't say anything. I thought maybe it was just me." A man from logistics whispered, "I've been told I don't look like management material." For years, the stories poured out, quiet confessions turning into a flood, and I realized dignity wasn't just my fight. It was ours. I opened the policy binders we'd once shelved for compliance checks and dust. These aren't decorations anymore. These are shields. If they fail to protect us, we rewrite them. Today, pages turned, notes scribbled, practices shifted in real time. The air in that room felt different. Charged, alive, dangerous in the best way. Weeks later, a small package arrived at my desk. No return address. Inside was a folded note in handwriting I recognized immediately. "Thank you for seeing me." J.I. held it for a long time. The quiet courage of a young man who risked everything for truth. I framed the note and placed it near Zuri's crib, because one day she'll need to know that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that refuses to die. That night, I found my old boarding pass at the bottom of my bag. The milk stain had dried into a pale ring, like a halo branded into the paper. What once felt like shame now looked like a vow, a reminder that even in humiliation, hidden worth waits to be revealed. I looked at Zuri sleeping, her chest rising, in soft rhythm, and whispered, "They tried to ground us, but we took flight anyway. And now I leave you with this, because the story doesn't end with me. When the world tries to make you small, when silence feels safer than truth, when dignity costs more than comfort, what will you choose?"